Before before we begin, a few quick housekeeping notes. We have simultaneous interpretation available in English, Spanish, and French. Please select your preferred channel using the interpretation buttons in the bottom of your Zoom window. Please keep your microphones muted during the presentations. You are welcome to share questions in the chat at any time. We will address them at the end of each session. This session is being recorded and will be shared afterward along with the presentations and additional resources. And here is an overview of the webinar agenda. We will hold two sessions, one on the role of the National Forest Monitoring System in the national reporting, and another on tools and resources with a hands-on demonstration. After each session, we will have a space for questions and answers addressed to each presenter. To open the webinar, I would like to invite Alison Hall to give us a brief introduction and overview of this webinar. Alison is from the U.S. Forest Service International Programs and Trade. She is the global coordinator for the Silver Carbon Program. Alison, we invite you and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Patricia. As Patricia said, my name is Allison Holt. I work with U.S. Forest Service International Programs and Trade, and I am the global coordinator for the Silver Carbon Program, which I think a lot of you know about, but I can just give you a quick overview about the program. And I'll also drop my email in the chat if anyone has further questions or they want to know more about the program. But this has been a long-standing interagency program with we started in 2010, and it was first an interagency program. We worked with USGS, with EPA, with NASA. And the focus was on capacity building in tropical and subtropical countries to monitor, measure, and report on forest degradation. We helped countries with their national forest monitoring systems. We did remote sensing, and then we also worked on greenhouse gas inventory. The last year, things have pivoted a little bit. It's just the Forest Service now that is managing the silver carbon program. So we kind of had to pivot a little bit with the new priorities, and we focused a lot of our efforts on building a global toolkit for that would be universally usable by all countries. So we've been working with the Forest Service International Foundation. And then also we have a partnership with WILPA and then with Spatial Informatics Group. So the past half year we've been building this toolkit. So this is thank you all very much for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of these tools we've been working on. And then this is also just noting this is the first webinar in a set of 3 webinars. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you learn a lot. And I'll hand it back to Patricia.
Thanks, Alison. I just want to say that we have a simultaneous interpretation for new people that are joining us. We have English, Spanish, and French, and you can select your preferred language in the bottom of the interpretation in your Zoom window. So let's move on for the start or for the first session. Um, we have Dr. Karine Bourgeois. I'm sorry. Dr. Karim Bourgeois and Dr. Renee Sioui for our first sessions. They are going to talk about National Forest Monitoring System and the role that this is playing in the national reporting. And we will learn from a concrete country experience in Central Africa. I'm pleased to introduce to our presenters. Dr. Karim Bourgeois is a climate and forest monitoring specialist and consultant with WILPA Capacity Development. She's former climate advisor for Central Africa with the U.S. Forest Service international programs. She has support RED Plus MRV system and carbon stock assessment across the Congo Basin and lead technical training under the Silva Carbon Program in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Dr. Renee Siwi is a forestry and climate specialist with over 20 years of experience in forest monitoring, MRV, and climate finances across Africa. He is as well a consultant with WILPA Capacity Development and member of the GFOI Advisory Group. He previously coordinate the U.S. Forest Service international programs across the Congo Basin and has advised government on RED Plus strategy, GHG report, and climate governance. Karine and Renee, welcome. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you everyone for attending today. So I will discuss, this is the first of our webinar series on MRV architecture and institutional integration. And so to kick off this series of webinar, we propose to start with a short and broad reflection session on the role of the National Forest Monitoring System, the challenge on sustaining it, adapt it to new opportunities, and to reflect on the necessity to connect forest monitoring with forest governance framework. And finally, we're going to focus on the necessity to assess the performance of this entire system regularly, which will be illustrated through a case study presented by my colleague Renee Siwe here. And so before we dive in, we just wanted to remind some background behind the development and evolution of the National Forest Monitoring System as we know them today, starting by the fact that national monitoring and national forest inventories have existed way before international framework highlighted the importance of it in the context of climate change as we know it today. So in most countries, the system were already present under one form or another, especially to monitor forest resources and protect protected areas, for instance. And so it's only since 2010 at COP16 and onward that the system have become a requirement to access RED plus result-based payment for a start, and transitioning slowly toward a core component of the MRV system under the RED plus rulebook in 2013, and as an essential framework to support climate transparency and reporting across multiple land use sector as per the Paris Agreement in order to support the national determined contribution of each countries. And as these international frameworks evolve, we ended up with a more or less standardized system that included not only the technical components necessary to monitor forests, but also the entire institutional and procedural framework essential to support the recommended component of the system at the state level. So as you know, this recommended component illustrated here on screen included a satellite land monitoring system supported by a national forest inventory, the greenhouse gas inventory, combined with the data collected and the data management, verification, and reporting framework, which together provide all the necessary information on forest cover change, carbon stock and stock change, emission and removals necessary to support the different reporting requirements under the RED Plus and enhanced transparency framework of the Paris Agreement, here illustrated below the screen. And so DNFMS is not only a system that produces data, but aim to be a system that institutions can use for reporting, but also for policy and decision making, and to benefit of financial mechanism linked to climate change mitigation and adaptation, and to protect environment, biodiversity, and above all, communities who depend on this forest ecosystem and are most vulnerable to climate change. And so since 2008, approximately, that has represented a huge international financial and technical challenge and investment, with more than 50 countries that have benefited from international support to develop their NFMS capacity, and immense progress shown since, but of course with very different levels of maturities depending on national circumstances and context, and tremendous challenges that we are still seeing and trying to solve today. And to start on this challenge, we have to remember at the beginning that the people presenting this institution at the time were faced with an immense task in clarifying institutional mandates, responsibilities, ensuring and plan for coordination and for the infrastructure, equipment, human resources to produce and share data, and all of that in a context where the return on the public investment that was needed to sustain the system was slow to come to light. So, and we still see today these challenges persisting, especially in this ever-evolving framework with emerging financial mechanisms and increasing demand for transparency from the international community as we go along. So we still see overlapping mandates, fragmented responsibilities in all countries, but also difficulties and challenge in going from project-based rather to like national project-based system. And in addition of this institutional challenge that requires a clear political will and roadmap that must benefit all, countries had also to build upon their existing national monitoring system, which represented a huge initial cost that often ranged from $3 to $5 million only for REDD+ readiness, so only for the first phase of REDD+, but that represent little compared to the long-term investment necessary and required to generate the required data based on field campaign, on Earth observation products, and sustain the system as a whole beyond individual projects. So the main challenge we are still faced today with it is to establish the NFMS as a national asset that can sustain itself over time and benefit each country to ensure a good return on public investment. And one of the most obvious opportunities and clearly climate finance mechanism, with a clear priority that over time we ensure that the National Forest Monitoring System serves as the main system to produce high level of integrated data rather than third-party companies, to produce the data that are still too often doing so, and which create the problem of duplication of monitoring efforts and low level of state data ownership. So our main priority is to ensure the capacity of NFMS to respond to opportunities such as jurisdictional crediting mechanisms, such as R3s, voluntary carbon market, Article 6 now, and the emerging frameworks such as biodiversity crediting or the TFFFF that relies on reporting preserved forest cover area rather than greenhouse gas emission reductions and removals. But in order to really benefit and bank on everything that we have invested so far, the core purpose of the NFMS also needs to move beyond the climate finance mechanism framework and climate reporting, and could become a real asset for the country, a system worth investing in that could support land use planning, forest governance to monitor and manage forest, biodiversity, agricultural and water resources, or being a support for law enforcement, or for instance, help manage disaster risks that increase with climate change, and thus protecting our communities and helping reduce conflicts linked to these environmental issues, thus saving a tremendous amount of money by investing in this monitoring system and making them sustainable over time. And we wanted to present a short example of such an opportunities, which lies in timber traceability and legality verification to reduce illegal logging and pressure on forests. So this illicit trade reportedly cost, according to Interpol and WWF, approximately 152 billions of dollars a year, and even when factoring in tax evasion, conflict, and lost ecosystem services, even estimated to 1 to 2 trillions of dollars annually. So in addition, there is a growing international demand to counter these activities with initiatives such as the European Forest Law Enforcement, Governance and Trade Framework, and voluntary partnership agreements requiring countries to establish robust legality assurance system, including timber traceability, supply chain controls, verification procedures, independent audits, and licenses mechanism. This could provide a very strong governance rationale to sustain investment into the NFMS and linking this monitoring system to other governance framework. So an example here is to link the NFMS, the monitoring of concession and forest change, to the existing timber tracking system, TTS, or the timber legality assurance system, TLS, that already exist in most countries. So that's illustrated here. Well, that the role of the NFMS is not to replace the system, but more to complement them by providing independent spatial monitoring of concession, harvest areas, and forest change. And by comparing what is authorized and reported by operators and logging companies with what is actually observed on the ground through the Earth observation and other monitoring tools, government could identify discrepancies, strengthen legality verification, target inspections more effectively as well, and improve transparencies and accountability through the entire timber supply chain. So this opportunity is an example of opportunities that could create a powerful synergy between forest monitoring and law enforcement to help reduce, in this case, illegal logging and associated forest degradation. And other examples of such opportunities are found, through different sectors, particularly over natural resources that could be put in place to maximize the profits in investing into the NFMS and sustain it over time. And as we conclude this brief reflection on how to sustain this national forest monitoring system, it's also important to remember that long-term success depends not only on technical capacity, but also on strong institution, coordination, and national ownership. And to support countries in this process, we wanted to remind everyone of some of the existing resources, starting by the country-led planning approach developed by the GFOI, Global Forest Observation Initiative, which help countries embed NFMS within their national institution, identify gaps and priorities, and move beyond project-based support toward a more sustainable system. So you have the website here on the screen, and the coordinator of the CLP told us that you should not hesitate to contact her. Her email is displayed here on the screen if you have any question or if you would like to know more. And it has also to be noted that as part of this CLP framework, the GFI also provides opportunities to reflect and connect on the NFMS and exchange experience, ideas between nations, with an example of such webinar not early than last week on the fundings, arrangement, and opportunities of the NFMS and practical solution to be found. We've been told the recording and reports of the webinar available in a few days. So I think on the link indicated here, so stay tuned for this. And finally, we arrive at the last and perhaps one of the most crucial points for sustaining a national forest monitoring system, which is to regularly assess the system itself. Building an NFMS is important, but ensuring that it remains effective, coordinated, and sustainable over time is equally critical. So regular assessment helps countries identify gaps, tracks progress, prioritize investments, and ensure the system continues to meet national needs. And to support countries in this process, a variety of tools have been developed, including the one that we wanted to present today through a case study developed by the GFY. So this is the Red Compass tool. So it's a comprehensive assessment and planning framework for NFMS. It's organized around 4 pillars and 86 recommended actions. It helps countries evaluate the maturity of the system, identify priority gaps, and develop a roadmap for continuous improvement. And so now I'm going to let my great colleague René Siwe present precisely the framework that was recently applied in the Republic of Congo, which brings us to the case study we will now present. René, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Karin, for presenting the background on the National Forest Monitoring System and highlighting the importance of the continuous evaluation of the system, which enables countries them to understand what the gaps are, challenges, and what priority actions need to be taken then to ensure sustainability of the system. So I will be talking now about with a focus on the Republic of Congo, but generally this is an assessment that we started off during the Silver Carbon program, and we've carried out this assessment already in 5 of the 6 Congo Basin countries. And currently we are actually collating the information and doing the analysis and to prepare country reports. We have a country report for the DRC that has already been published on the open MRV system, and we are in the process now of concluding the report for the Republic of Congo, and the reports for the 4 other Congo Basin countries will be coming up in the course of the year. So, Karen, please, next slide. So, yeah, so as Karin mentioned, for today, we would focus on the assessment that was done for the Republic of Congo, which I just said that the report for this will be coming up pretty soon. So the one unique aspect of the assessment which we did in the Republic of Congo was that besides using the Red Compass, which and its 86 recommended actions distributed across the 4 main pillars as Karin presented, we had the opportunity to use a separate tool, which is called Participatory Institutional Capacity Assessment and Learning. So this gave us the opportunity to assess the institutional capacity of CENIAF, which is the main institution responsible for driving the National Forest Monitoring System in the case of the Republic of Congo. So the PICAR tool gave us the opportunity to look into aspects which the Red Compass tool doesn't really address, issues around governance and leadership within the institution that has the mandate to drive the National Forest Monitoring System, look into aspects on human resources, organizational systems, and also the operational capacity of the system itself. So that is the main reason why we decided we wanted to highlight the case of the Republic of Congo here. Next slide, please. So, so as we carry out normally a participatory approach where we invite different stakeholders nationally that are involved in the National Forest Monitoring System process. And we enable the participants then in a workshop setting go through all the different actions, and they have the possibility then to work in subgroups and also in plenary and make a decision whether where the country is in terms of progress with regards to each of the actions that are in the Red Compass tool. So decisions are made, and we classify if an action is completed, if an action is still ongoing, or if at all the action hasn't started at all. One important aspect, and which is very important here, is that we also ensure that we don't only note these levels of progress, but we also recommend that countries provide a justification of the different actions that have been carried out. So you don't only indicate that it has been completed, but you have to provide evidence of the completion. It could be that there is a report that exists, there is a ministerial decree or a ministerial note that was enacted based on consultations that were carried out in country. And one positive aspect of this approach, which we don't reflect a lot in the reports, but which is very important to also note, is that these participatory approach in a workshop setting also gives the opportunity for different stakeholders to exchange information on the National Forest Monitoring System. If you recall, one of the challenges which Karin mentioned previously when she was talking about the National Forest Monitoring System was the challenge in interoperability and exchange of information between institutions. So having this workshop setting also, besides the fact that we request for justification of each action, also gives the opportunity for National Forest Monitoring System actors to exchange information and have a better understanding of where the country is situated in terms of the progress in the process and ensure that all national stakeholders are on the same page. Next slide, please. So, like I said in the introduction, we complemented then I would say the Red Compass based assessment with the PICAL assessment, which is then another participatory approach, but which looks into, in the case of the Republic of Congo, CENIAF has the mandate to drive the National Forest Monitoring System process. So we are looking, we work then with staff from CENIAF, and then we are looking into key aspects around the administrative capacity, the organizational learning, the issues around capacity strengthening and demand for performance. This is very important because sometimes we are looking purely on the technical aspects and it may or may not be functioning from the technical side of things. But it's very important to, since we are talking here about sustainability, to ensure whether the institutions are properly set up to effectively actually drive their mandate in and not only in a short-term manner, but have maybe the necessary finances and the necessary leadership to be capable of effectively driving the system in a sustainable manner. And also, so this is the angle which PICAL provided then in the assessment which we carried out. Next slide. So some of the based on these two assessments now, I'm just going to highlight yet in the case of the Republic of Congo some of the key, what I would say, results here. So in terms of the Republic of Congo, from the institutional arrangements point of view, we could summarize here that there is a legal mandate for CENIAF to establish or manage the National Forest Monitoring System. RED coordination system is also in place. There is also a framework which guarantees interinstitutional collaboration. But nonetheless, there is still a need to review the institutional roles and responsibilities. There is a need also to finalize the development of governance guidelines around the National Forest Monitoring System. There is still a need to strengthen provincial and local coordination. With regards to what we see as key priority actions that came out of the assessment, there is a need then to update legal and regulatory frameworks for the National Forest Monitoring System, strengthen long-term institutional and financial arrangements, and establish a formal coordination platform across the different actors. So targeted priority actions could be then, again, consolidate consolidate the NFMS scope nationally and align it also with the FREL. One distinctive aspect of the Republic of Congo is the fact that there is so CENIAF, which I would say hosts the National Forest Monitoring System, is within the Ministry of Forestry, in charge of forestry, and aspects around greenhouse gas monitoring and collaboration, national collaboration with the UNFCCC is driven by the ministry in charge of environment. So there is a strong need in the Republic of Congo in terms of essentially ensuring that there is a strong alignment between what is being generated in the National Forest Monitoring System, which is driven by CENIAF, and actions that are communicated directly to the UNFCCC, which is then driven by the Ministry of Environment. And this brings us also to the importance then of maybe not only formalizing roles and responsibilities, but also ensuring a strong coordination and collaboration between key actors. Next slide. So the main outcome, some of the main outcomes that we see from the assessment using PICAL, first, we see that from a technical standpoint, CENIAF has the capability of effectively operating and driving the National Forest Monitoring System. But there is a strong need also to strengthen management systems, human resources, and the institutional sustainability mechanisms within CENIAF. So some of the key strengths here is that we could highlight is the strong expertise that is already available in CENIAF on issues around forest inventory, remote sensing, RED Plus, MRV. There is also significant experience also from CENIAF staff in supporting fair development, for example. CENIAF also has established relationships with key technical partners, FAO, University of Maryland has a strong, through the U.S. government for Mali CAPE program, has a strong relationship with the University of Maryland and has benefited from technical support almost over a decade already. They have established relationships also with GRC. These are massive, I would say, advantages that we see that CENIAF already, you see already within CENIAF. And this has resulted also to available technical capacity also within CENIAF. We could discuss whether we have already, whether there is a critical mass in terms of number, but in terms of know-how, there is, substantial also expertise within CENIAF. Next slide. So with regards to challenges, I will just try to summarize here. The first key challenge is about the human resources and the organizational systems within CENIAF. That is an area where, from the PICAL assessment, there is a strong need to improve on things. Second main challenge is also procedures and internal coordination. And the third challenge there is also the external environment and financial sustainability. These are some of the key challenges that we see from an institutional standpoint, which has to be addressed. In the past, through other U.S. government programs, which unfortunately no longer exist, some of these, there were already, I would say, projects and programs in place where we were effectively addressing some of these issues already. So, next slide. So the next red compass pillar is the technical design decisions. Again, here there is also some significant progress that has been made from the assessment that came out of the assessment which was carried out. The NFMS architecture is defined and it's operational. Key forest monitoring methodologies also have been established. CENIAF has worked with the institutions that I mentioned earlier to effectively generate information that has supported greenhouse gas monitoring or the elaboration of biannual update reports or the FRAs that were submitted. So core NFMS components are also well integrated within CENIAF. But ongoing aspects here that I could highlight is the harmonization of methodologies across different monitoring components. This is a key aspect which Karin mentioned earlier, the fact that as much as it's a positive aspect of having the different technical institutions in place, sometimes this also leads to the utilization of different methodologies and the need then for CENIAF to work closely with these institutions to see how things could be harmonized better. There is also then the aspect of interoperability, which there is still a lot more work there that has to be done. So formalize also data and to formalize and document technical procedures and SOPs. This is also related to the different methodologies also that are actually being used. The importance also of data sharing and system integration and ensuring also long-term maintenance and updating of national forest monitoring tools. Good. Next slide, please. So with Pillar 3, measurement and estimation, key accomplishments there is that national activity data and emission factors have been produced. Forest monitoring and land use change assessments have been conducted, mostly with support from the technical partners, and the country has submitted files already to the UNFCCC based on data that was generated from the National Forest Monitoring System. Nonetheless, there is still need then to improve quality assurance and quality control procedures, refine uncertainty analysis methods, strengthen field inventory and measurement protocols, establish regular NFI measuring plots, and develop higher tier emission factors. So these are some of the areas where more further action is required. Next slide, please. So the last pillar, which is then the reporting and verification, key accomplishments here that could be highlighted are the submissions of the FREL that I just mentioned already. RED Plus reporting processes that have also been established, and a national forest monitoring data that has already been used then for climate reporting. So key areas, issues that are either in progress or that need urgent priority action is the strengthening and verification of the validation procedures, improving documentation and reporting workflows, enhancing accessibility also of national forest monitoring system outputs. There is a need also to formalize reporting and verification protocols. And data archiving is something also which is actually required to be strengthened within CENIAF. Next slide. So maybe just trying to summarize here then. So the RED Plus governance architecture, like I mentioned, it's actually operational, and the SINA MNV is already generating activity data and emission factors. Key technical challenges that we could mention here are aspects related to clarifying the institutional roles and responsibilities, which is highlighted here as some level of fragmentation. There is also a strong dependence also on, not even a strong dependence, but an entire dependence on projects. So information is only generated when there are projects. So there is a strong need here for to look into aspects on sustainability within CENIAF. And I think that is something which this CRP process could be very, very helpful. I know the Republic of Congo is not one of the priority CRP countries, but this is an area where I think the CRP process could really be beneficial to a country like the Republic of Congo. Next slide, please. So again, this is more or less, I would say, repeating some of the issues that we've mentioned. Priority 1 is to consolidate aspects around governance. Priority 2 is to then institutionalize then operations. Priority 3, then build a sustainable national forest monitoring system institution. And priority 4, then position a national forest monitoring system as a national infrastructure. So support should keep focusing on improving the national forest monitoring system data, the data generation system, but equally also focusing on the strengthening the institutions that generate the information, in this case then CENIAF. And by strengthening the institution, we shouldn't only be looking into, I would say, the technical angle of things, but effectively looking into some of the deficiencies which the PICAL assessment actually highlighted, which have to do also with not only issues around financing, but also the management itself, the coordination, internal coordination of the institution itself. These are some of the things that I think the institution requires for that strengthening. So the next slide would just provide, so the reports that I mentioned, we kind of like, in those country reports, we have, I would say, 3 main sections, let me put it that way. Initially, we provide just a broad context and the progress that the country has made in establishing the through the RED Plus process, and also developing its national forest monitoring system. Then we highlight then the assessment itself, what was effectively done for each of the using the Red Compass tool for the country, and based on that, we conclude the report by highlighting then what are the strengths that the country has, where are the gaps, where are the challenges, and what we see as priority actions for the country moving forward. So again, just to conclude here, this is ongoing for the 6 countries in the region. DRC report is already published, and you can have access to that through the open MRV. Republic of Congo would be published pretty soon. And for the other 4 countries, the assessments have been done. We are effectively, I would say, analyzing the information that came out of the analysis which was carried out in each of the countries. So thank you very much for your attention. I think we can take a few questions now. Back to you, Patricia. Thank you.
Thank you, Rene and Karin. Now we have time for questions. We have minutes from to take questions from the audience. Please, you can raise your hand and then take the questions direct from the presenters.
Hey, Patricia, there is one in the chat, but maybe we can ask Papi to give a short, to present his own question in a very short manner, brief manner.
Or I think if Renee, you can read the question. It's in French, so little help.
Yeah, sorry about that part.
I can take the question actually. I think the participant is asking about the fate of the assessment that was done in the DRC. And like I said in my presentation, the report for the DRC has already been published, and this report is actually available on the open MRV system. Yeah, so I don't know. The other workshop, which I think you're referencing in July 2023 in Douala, was that was when we were effectively presenting to Congo Basin countries the CLP process. The CLP, so the Republic of Congo is a priority country for CLP. If I'm not mistaken, there is an in-country mission, which is, I don't know if has taken place or if it's been planned, but if Eli is on this call, Eli, you can jump in and maybe just update the DRC participants on where the DRC stands with the CLP process. I don't know if Eli is still on the call. I saw her logged in, but I'm not so sure. Eli?
Renee, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, thanks. Yes, there is, you're right. There was a mission, actually, the initial exploration, connect and understand mission to Congo planned for last week or 8 through 12 of June, but due to the Ebola outbreak, it was officially canceled by FAO. So we are looking into better conditions to go, and hopefully before the end of this year. And so because we couldn't be there, so we just had a meeting on the 5th of June with the different key institutions in the DRC, and so hoping to move forward pretty quickly. Thanks, Renee.
Thanks also, Eli.
I see another question, maybe. Do you want to take this, Renée? Is it possible to assess... Wait, I'm going to read it in French. Est-il possible d'estimer l'écart restant à combler en matière d'interopérabilité? Plus généralement, quels sont les principaux défis? Et donc, just to answer this question, that's what the Red Compass assessment is doing. And it's like very specific to each country, to their context, to their own challenges. So the main challenges is the one we presented. They are not only technical, but also a matter of political will, integration into the institutional framework, and also, as demonstrated by Renée through this case study in RC, through the PICAL assessment, also a matter of human resources and capacity and performance in place in the institution. So I don't know if it answered the question, or Renée, if you would like to complete something.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Okay, so we have one from Peru, from Gino Hermana. Is it possible to estimate the remaining interoperability gap more broadly? What are the main challenges? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's what the question I just answered is that one. So not only using the Red Compass, but also you can complete it with some other assessments, such as the PICAL assessment. It's also very important to know that the 86 action of the Red Compass or PICAL assessment can be adapted by each country to their national circumstances, but also their national priorities in order to, as we discussed, to sustain the NFMS in making it an asset for the countries and answer their own priorities. So I think that if you want to talk about the main challenges and interoperability globally, I think that the CLP process by Eli, who just spoke right now. Sorry?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Oh, no, okay. especially the session on Reflect and Connects we discussed before, but please go, René.
No, I think there is another question. I don't know, Patricia, you tell us if we still have time to address the questions that are coming into the chat.
Yes, just one more. We have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so I see there is a question from Aurélie about an SNSF evaluation that was carried out in 2025. So this we are not aware of any SNFF evaluation of 2025, so this is not taking into consideration in the analysis and the report that we are actually elaborating at the moment. I don't know if this answers the question, this answers the question, but we are not taking into consideration any assessment of an SNSF that was carried out in 2025. This was, thank you.
Thank you, Karin and René, for your response, and thanks everyone who is sharing questions. We will continue to collect them through the webinar and follow up afterward. So don't worry, all the questions will be answered. Now we have to move in more practical part of the webinar. I will share again my screen. We have our second sessions. It's about tools and resource. It's a more practical sessions with hand-on demonstration. We have 2 different presentations in this part of our webinar, and we will start with Crystal Wisted. Crystal is a project manager at the geospatial data scientist on the environmental mapping team at the Spatial Information Group. She has expertise in remote sensing technology, unbiased area estimation, Google Earth Engine, Collect Error Online. She works extensively on capacity building efforts, especially to support countries with land cover mapping and forest monitoring for MRV. Crystal will guide us through a demonstration of crop mapping using artificial intelligence and machine learning, along with the available methodology and training resources. Crystal, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. I will go ahead. All right.
You can share.
Okay. I think you have to stop sharing in order for me to share.
Okay.
Got it.
There you go. Bonjour.
Okay. Okay, everybody. So again, my name is Crystal and I work for Spatial Informatics Group. And I'd like to start off this presentation noting a case study where the crop mapping analysis was performed in Cambodia. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the methodology used. And then we'll move into the training website that is available for you to repeat the process for your own country and whichever crop you would like. So in Cambodia, this was performed a few years ago. I was not involved with the project at this time, so there might be a few people on the call who were involved, and feel free to chime in the chat if you need to add anything else. But this was a deep learning approach for crop mapping in Cambodia, specifically for cashews. So it was implemented with the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry and Fisheries of Cambodia and the Ministry of the Environment in collaboration with FAO, Servier, and UNDP. It focused on building in-house capacity within the Cambodian team for crop mapping. It was a 5-year collaboration with the team to produce this map. The main objective was to improve both the efficiency and the quality of crop mapping in the region for agricultural production planning purposes, ensuring deforestation-free commodities, and the repeated land cover mapping assessment. So it resulted in a national level cashew map, which has been published and peer-reviewed with the methodology. So for this example, the Cambodia's Department of Agricultural Land Resource Management, DALRM, they needed to exact data on vital crops such as cashews and mangroves, which are crucial for productivity, sustainability, and global compliance. So the traditional methods that they were using to map this commodity were time-consuming and labor-intensive. So a new methodology was sought. The remote sensing posed challenges, however, as different tree crops resembled each other within Earth observation data, and a human interpreter can often mistake them for natural canopies, or a basic machine learning algorithm could also suffer from those same complexities. So the solution that SIG helped co-develop was a model to classify cashew maps using a UNet deep learning approach. There was a training event or several training events for capacity building, ensuring proficiency within the Google Earth Engine environment and machine learning itself. So our support significantly improved Cambodia's crop mapping accuracy and efficiency and helped it align with their national objectives. You'll see on the right is a picture of one of those training events with some of my colleagues present, and a screenshot of the national map for cashews that was developed. So we have a nice quote from Chaya, the Vice Chief of Office, who was part of this work. So they said that Google Earth Engine has empowered our Cambodian DALRM office, allowing us to monitor cropland, analyze land use, and map our national cashew cover. Previously, updating a province's land cover map took up to a year. After training 4 team members on this GEE-based workflow, we were able to map 400,000 hectares of cashew plantations across 25 provinces. And that was made possible using this workflow that's shown on the right, several cloud-based tools that allow for massive amounts of data and processing. So at the end of that project, the map was officially launched. It was a 5-meter resolution map based on several data sources, such as Planet NICFI, Sentinel-2, Sentinel-1, and Landsat imagery. The map was generated, as I said, using UNet convolutional neural network training with over 80,000 polygons distributed over the whole country as training data. And all of that training data was collected by the General Directorate of Agriculture, GDA, in Cambodia. That could be from field data or remote sensing collected data, such in programs such as Collect Earth Online. And the final map does result in a probability of whether cashew is present. So now let's switch to talking about the methodology itself. So I've mentioned machine learning already. So machine learning itself is the study of a computer algorithm that allow computer programs to automatically improve through experience. It's a branch of artificial intelligence. So you're essentially teaching the computer program an objective, showing it some patterns, and then it can reproduce that objective. So let's talk about how that is applied to imagery. So to a computer, an image is just a set of numbers depicting the color values of each pixel. So when I look at this picture of an elephant, I see an elephant, but a computer would read that a bit differently. So to train a machine learning model to recognize the image, we need to provide it with a large data set of labeled images. So I need to teach the computer, this is what an elephant looks like. So once that model learns to match the pixel values that it sees with the correct labels that I'm telling it, elephant or not elephant, after this training, the model can analyze completely new images, being able to recognize other pictures of different elephants or giraffes or tigers. So it applies its learning pixel label associations to predict the correct label for a completely new image it has not seen before. And then to give you an overarching view of what we've talked about. So artificial intelligence is the largest category. Machine learning is a subset of that AI technology, with using statistical methods to enable machines to improve with experience. And then deep learning, which is what I'll talk more about now, is a subset of machine learning, which makes the computation of a multi-layer neural network feasible. So deep learning, abbreviated DL, is an ML technique that automates information extraction or decision-making through neural networks. This is a simulation of the neural networks that are within the human mind. So when it recognizes, just like a human mind would, the patterns that it can see. So this is most relevant for crop mapping because of the computer vision application technique, where computers can recognize, interpret, and understand visual data like satellite imagery, not just pictures of elephants. So image classification is one example that we'll be using of computer vision. So how does this apply to our end objective, which is crop mapping? So deep learning employs convolutional neural networks, CNNs, to extract spatial patterns from neighboring pixels and images, which is not possible in just a typical machine learning technique. So this is the crucial point for accurate land cover mapping, because when you're looking at images of different crops, if I were to look at just one pixel, it would look like a green, leafy, healthy plant. But I need to see the larger context of the patterns of the plantation to be able to distinguish plantations from natural forest and from each other. So it really needs that extra component from deep learning and CNNs of the larger spatial context of neighboring pixels, not just one individual pixel's numerical values. However, there is the caveat that deep learning systems require vast amounts of labeled data and really high computational power. So although they are wonderful for this pattern recognition spatially, it does mean you need a whole lot of data to make them work. Okay, so we have a lot of data, as I said, but the benefit of the Google Cloud environment is that it can integrate GEE's and Google's cloud storage and AI platform. So this integration allows for this seamless flow between multiple tools and data storage. So looking at this image, all of these are within Google Cloud, but on the far left, TensorFlow and Google Colab are the AI platform which build, deploy, and scale our machine learning model via the AI platform. These predictions can then be shared with Google Earth Engine, and Google Earth Engine has the ability to access and process huge amounts of satellite data. And then that it can pass that training data to the Google Cloud storage, where we can store both our data and our trained models. So the AI platforms, as you'll see in the training, also store the model itself within the cloud storage. And all of those work together to unlock and solve the problem of massive amounts of data storage and massive amounts of computational power needed to use this deep learning approach. Here's one more visualization of what the methodology looks like. This one on the left, I think, is fairly clear. You can see how when satellite imagery is used to collect examples, the data, the reference data, that is like what does each different land cover look like, or what does a cashew crop look like specifically. That training data is then numeric and then can be shared with a neural network to train it as to what each of those land covers or commodity crops look like. And then it can, once it's learned the patterns, infer on a totally new image a classification map. So that would be the final land cover map result. This more complex flowchart is one that is used during the training, and you'll step through each of these individual boxes of preparing data, building the model, validating the model, saving it in a cloud bucket, and applying it. All right, and now we come to the resource that is now available to you. So there is a link to this training website. I'll put it in the chat right after I'm done speaking. But this website, here's a couple of screenshots of it, walks you from start to finish of what is the objective, an introduction to machine learning itself, and convolutional neural networks, deep learning, but also the Google Earth Engine platform and Google Colab. And it will walk you through multiple Google Colab scripts to step through the whole process of using that data to train the model, validating it, and then applying it to a new location. So I'll let this recording run on the right, which is showing the website itself, walking through all those different tabs. Within this website, there are 5 different lesson slide decks. So underneath each of the tabs, there is a little section saying module 2, and those link to slide decks to explain the material. And then there are 7 different Google Colab scripts, which are interactive. So you run each cell on your own and get results as you go. And at the very end, for area estimation, there are also 2 Google Sheets to allow you to assess the areas of the crops present. The main topics within the website are an introduction to AI and machine learning, the Google environment for machine learning, data preparation, mapping crops via the neural networks, and area and uncertainty estimation. And here's one more recording just showing one of those Google Colab scripts and how when you run each section, it can produce numeric results or an actual interactive map. Right now it's showing some of the training polygons that were used as part of the training and that you have access to when you open up this website. As a final result, you'll see this is an example of the land cover map produced in Cambodia with an overlay of the individual crops that were made using the deep learning approach. So in summary, there are many automation possibilities here to further automate the mapping process from any older versions that you were using in your region, maybe hand digitization or field work. All of that information is still helpful for training these types of models, but it can significantly reduce the cost and workload once you train a model to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. This website is a resource for training and support, openly available, and it's a remote technique that you do not need to install on your computer, so you're not limited by your own resources locally. It's all done within the cloud environment. So once you set up your link to it with an account, it works great on anything that has internet access. And this approach can be applied to all different crops. I talked about cashew, but it's been done with rice, and you can apply it to anything else that you have training data for. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal, for a very rich presentation. Now we are going to hear Chip and Ashley. Let me share my slides again. Now we will hear from Ashley Lehman and Chip Scott, who will present sample-based area estimation tool. Ashley is a forest monitoring technical expert who, as consultant through the Forest Service International Foundation, coordinates resource and expertise from the historic silva-carbon community to make tools and case studies available to the global community. With a background of a specialist in national forest inventory, she has supported countries around the world in designing and strengthening their forest monitoring and reporting system. She previously served as program manager from the silver carbon and climate finance programs in Africa. Dr. Charles, known as Chip Scott, he retired in 2016 as program manager with the Forest Inventory and Analysis program in the U.S. Forest Service. Since then, he has worked as international forest inventory consultant, providing technical assistance on design and estimation of national forest inventory in several countries like the Bahamas, Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Paraguay, Bangladesh, Nepal, and others. Currently, he is in cooperation with the US Silva Carbon Program. He is developing statistical estimators, documentation, and software to design and analyze inventory data across a wide range of designs and estimation approaches. Chip and Ashley, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Patricia. Thanks for the introduction. We're going to have Chip share his screen here, and I'll just give a brief introduction on sample-based area estimation, and then we'll jump into and he'll give an overview of the tool that he's been working on. So. For those who aren't as familiar with this, I'm sure a lot of you are, but sample-based area estimation is a statistically rigorous approach for estimating the area of different land cover classes and changes over time. So rather than mapping every pixel across a landscape, we interpret the probability based sample of points from satellite imagery and use statistical methods to estimate the total area and quantify uncertainty. This allows the countries or their users to report not only an estimate, but the confidence that they have in that estimate. And this approach is widely used in national forest monitoring systems to monitor forest gain, forest loss, and land use change. It's become a standard method for estimating activity data used in greenhouse gas inventories and is commonly applied for reporting for the UNFCCC and for climate finance mechanisms. It is a requirement under our trees and the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility. So the methods behind sample-based estimation have been developed and refined for many years through contributions from many international scientists, organizations, and foresters. And there's a lot of great information out there and best practice guidance that has been published through the GFOI and their library of resources. You can go to the next slide. Through the Silva Carbon program, Chip, you don't mind hitting the next slide? Thanks. Through the Silva Carbon program, the U.S. government has supported many research institutions and experts and national monitoring programs that have been working to improve the sample-based estimation methods, have supported a bunch of tools and training materials and different operational workflows. It's been well over a decade of collaboration in this effort. And through these efforts, there's a large body of resources, lessons learned, and on-the-ground experiences that our countries have navigated to strengthen their forest monitoring and MRV systems around the world. And under this current program that Allison described at the beginning, we are working with FAO, GFOI, and the broader Silva Carbon community to bring together resources in a shared repository of tools and case studies, best practices, and lessons learned. And this sample-based area estimation and design tool that Chip will demonstrate is one of the resources emerging from that effort. So you can go to the next slide, Chip. Great. And so this is sort of, this is a general overview, very general overview of the workflow in sample-based area estimation. And this repository of tools and resources will sort of follow this workflow in this figure. And so just also before introducing the tool, it's useful to understand where it fits in the broader sample-based area estimation workflow. In developing sample-based estimates, it can be an iterative process to meet your precision target, and includes defining, usually it starts with defining the reporting needs, which is based on precision requirements, different classes, land use classes, definitions, time period, available resources and capacity. And then, then moves to creating maps for classification, stratification, post-stratification, and then sample design, looking at the sample size or the plot design, the response design or plot interpretation of how the plots will be interpreted, and then moving toward data cleanup, QA, QC, and estimation and reporting. And so many different tools support this workflow. For example, Collect Earth is commonly used for sample or plot interpretation, while CPL or Google Earth Engine can support many steps of this workflow, as well as the map development and response design. So this sample-based area estimation design tool focuses primarily in the sample design, data QA, QC, estimation and analysis and reporting. And it helps users evaluate sample size requirements and assess the precision targets, looking at quantifying uncertainty, and then has an output of the results for reporting. So, and then I just wanted to mention too, we're open to suggestions of different additional tools or case studies or lessons learned that could benefit the broader community to include in this repository, and don't hesitate to reach out to Chip or I following this webinar. So with that, I'll hand it over to Chip to demonstrate the tool.
Great, thanks, Ashley. So we've developed the tool to address a number of issues. We tried to make it a fairly complete tool to look at sample-based area estimation. First is, how many samples are needed? How many are enough to, when you're looking at a country, to assess the activity data? And then once you've got the data, how do you develop the estimates and their precision? What's the statistically valid approaches? And then what if they're not precise enough? How many more samples are necessary, and where do I put them? What strata? And then how do you test for an efficient response design, plot design? So what we've done is create a macro-enabled Excel tool with various tabs to address each of these issues. So this graphic on the right is just to give you an idea of the feel of the tool, and then different tabs to address the issues. So for prior to doing any sampling, you can do some sample size simulations to get an idea of how many samples to put out there. So you can simulate the conditions using the tool to, you can set initial values of the sample size, the number of map strata, the number of points per plot, and the characteristics of the various strata. It will then generate simulated data using those characteristics, and over a number of iterations to factor in the variability, the randomization, and then it'll give you the results, which you can evaluate and then decide whether you can afford that level of precision. And so then once you've got the data, then it'll take the sample-based area data and compute the estimates and their precision. The steps in that process are to paste the data, which include the plot data and point data if there's multiple points per plot, the stratum if you've got map strata, and then any number of land class attributes, and paste those into the tool. Then you can select the sampling design, either pre or post stratification, and then you select the land class to analyze one at a time. And then it computes the estimates for you and their precision. And we'll go into a deeper, more detailed evaluation, demonstration of that a bit, I hope. And then we evaluate the results. And if you've done, if the map class and the classification have the same labels, then it'll do a user's accuracy, producer's accuracy, and overall accuracy. So then you can repeat that for each of the other attributes. So once you've got the data, then you can decide whether you need to refine the sample size, because the simulation is just an approximation. And so, so you can define precision requirements for one or more of the specific attributes, specific classes of those attributes. In this case, you can set the precision requirements over here for each of these three land classes. You can see the initial sampling errors, and then here the target sampling errors. So then it'll compute the optimal number of plots, and then it'll compute the additional number of samples needed by stratum to meet the precision requirements. And then you can decide whether you have enough money to do the additional number of samples, and then collect them and then rerun the program. Another feature is to look at the response design. If you've got a design with multiple points per plot, then you can evaluate whether you could do a fewer number of points and be more efficient in doing so. So you would enter the number of points per plot that you want to evaluate. That's the same or less than the initial number of points. And you can also arrange them spatially. And then you can enter the time cost, or time or cost, however you want to do it, of setting up each plot, and then the marginal cost of doing each additional point. And then it'll compute the cost of meeting the precision requirements, as we said in the previous slide. And then you can compare multiple options. In this case, we have the 5 options, and how many total plots would be needed. And this is certainly fewer plots. You need fewer points. You need more plots, but the total time may be less. And so you can see it in green is the best. And so doing 2 points per plot was actually more efficient than doing 5. So that was not helpful for the existing survey, but it certainly could be helpful for future surveys. So we'll try to do this demo of how to use the tool here. Basically, the first step is to clear any existing data. And then next step is to paste in the new data into cell D1 up there in the green cell. And then watch that get pasted in here. And then go to choose the sampling design, either pre or post stratification. Stratified random sampling is pre-stratification. It also needs to know what the roles of each of the columns are, whether they're classification data or identification fields. And then you choose the land class. In this case, we only have one land class to choose from. And then next step is then to update. So this is where it does a couple minutes of calculations. So that's where this video is nice. We get to skip all that and look at the results. So we need to fill in the confidence level, and then the area by stratum, and then it gives us the proportions in each class, within each stratum of each class, and then the overall proportion of each class in the population, and then it gives us the area of each class. Gives us the sampling errors. You can see that the last class, Perdita, has the same label as one of the stratum, and so it gets a blue label, which means you can compute the users and producers accuracy, in this case 79%. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide. So that's the estimation tool. We're also in the process of building a loader. We recognize that this might be helpful. It loads and prepares the data for the interpreter from one or more interpreters, and it copies the data into the estimation tool, and also does a little preparation work we'll talk about. So you can go over here, select where the data is. Then you can select one or more files. Typically, each interpreter will have his own file, and so you can then they'll show up here. Then you can append them. It also has a feature then, if you have multiple interpreters of the same subset of points, then you can do a quality assurance, quality control analysis of those data. So once you've loaded the subset of columns of the data that you need, not all columns are necessary, then you can see the data has been loaded over here. Then you can click on the summary button, and doing so, it gives you a descriptive statistics of each of the fields. It gives you the data types, whether it's text or number, the number of entries. And so if you have any blank entries, that you'll see a difference here. If it's numeric, then minimum, maximum. It also gives you a list of all the unique codes and how many of them there are. This gives you a good opportunity to look for any misspellings and that sort of thing. So it's a good editing feature, a data quality feature. Then it also gives you an opportunity to create some additional fields, like combining presence absence fields into a single column labeled with the label for each presence absence column. And so and also you can recode a field to condense, combine classes. All the forest type classes can be combined into a single forest category, for instance. Or you can concatenate fields where, for instance, you can look at change between the land class at time 1 and land class at time 2, and basically by concatenating, then you create a land transition change class. And then if all the data are ready, then you can hit the copy button, and it prepares the data for the estimation tool. Then you just paste it into the tool as we saw earlier. But if there's more than one interpreter for any single classified point, the tool will direct you instead to hit the compare interpreters button. So it copies and sorts the data and then provides an additional column. As we see here, there's 2 land class variables here. And what the idea there is if all the interpreters, in this case, there's 2 interpreters, if they both called it the same, then it's going to label the plot with the unanimous decision. But if there's a disagreement as to what it is, then it's going to leave it blank and put a green bar, green cell there so that an expert can then come back in and evaluate each of those and make a manual decision as to what the final answer is. And then finally, the tool can then compare the classification of one interpreter against another or against the final answer. In comparing it to the final answer, then you do that for each of the land class attributes. Then it helps identify interpreters who may need additional training and in which fields, what attributes. So then once the data are finalized, all the blanks have been filled in, then you can hit the copy button and again transfer the data back to the estimation tool. So in summary, the sample-based area estimation design tool, it's pretty much complete. So it does the sample size simulations to develop the initial sample size. It does the analysis for area and area change estimates and their precision. It helps you refine the sample size if necessary, and helps you to identify how much to intensify and where to put the plots and which strata. And then you can also evaluate the response design, the plot design, see if there are fewer points more efficient than doing all the points that were initially done. And then data loader, which is still in development, but it's largely there. It can load data from one or more interpreters and prepare it for the estimation. And it'll also, if you have multiple interpreters for a subset of points, then it'll compare their classifications and then use it to finalize the results. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Crystal, Ashley, and Chip, for your great presentations. We are running out of the time, but we can take one or two questions maybe for the presenters. I see that there's a lot of questions for Crystal, but she was replaying in the chat. So I don't know if Marcela or Silvia can address a question for the presenters.
Sure. Marcela, do you have one question from the chat that you picked?
No, we have several, but I'm also kind of wondering in terms of time if we can simply save all the questions, and thank you so much for sharing all of this. And we will be responding soon by email to your questions, and maybe take this time to talk about next steps.
So thank you, everyone. Before we close, just I want to mention a few points. The recording, slides, and resources from today's session will be shared by email and upload to our webinar repository in the coming days. We invite you to complete a short feedback survey that we are sharing afterwards. Your input help us to shape the upcoming sessions. As we mentioned before, this is the first of a series of 3 webinars. The Block 2 series is coming soon in July. So stay tuned for the date and the topic announcement, and we are hoping to everyone can join us again for the second block. And I just want to mention, in behalf of the organization team, thank you to our presenters, Karine, Renee, Crystal, Chip, and Ashley, for sharing their expertise today. And thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will look forward to see you at all at the Block 2. So take care, everyone. Bye.
Hasta luego, gracias.